Hello everyone. Today we're looking at our first block of research for task 1. We're looking at why some schools choose to encourage and produce online classes and why other schools do not choose to do that. To do that, we're going to employ multiple of the strategies we've learned so far, so buckle up and let's get started. First thing that's probably important to search for is successes. I imagine you wouldn't implement online courses unless they were successful. So let's see what we can search for here. Okay, so there's a few interesting things here. We will try a strategy of using several tabs. Submission. I imagine they advocate for that, so that would be worth considering. Let's try that PDF as well. So we've got a few sources we can take a look at and see if there's anything we can add to our notes. So online learning spread on the rise. Much talk about post-secondary level. So there's evidence that students can do well, but it's not necessarily academically backed yet by way of using online courses. So let's go ahead and take this link and at least note that much, that there is some success with online courses. So again, the article advocates that online students can be more successful than traditional ones. A few studies been done to measure it. Okay, not as much here as I thought, but we'll keep that. Let's look at the research portion from here. The company is education, blended learning. Doesn't quite fit our strict definition of online, but we'll see if we can come back to that if there's nothing else here in these reports. Let's see some facts in online learning. So 25 states have virtual schools operating. So where's the why? So this is kind of interesting, and I'll highlight this when I paste it into my document, or my notes document. Okay, so it reads that single and multi-district blended online programs are the largest and fastest growing segment of online learning. That signals to me that one of the benefits of online learning, at least among many districts, is cost sharing. That they don't have to expend as many resources in these multi-district programs. So you could have a situation where your district can offer many courses that perhaps its staff is not qualified to offer by partnering with a neighboring district, or you could leverage each other's resources to deliver instruction. Okay. So credit recovery and again a breadth of course variety are issues cited here. So reasons for implementation, credit recovery, and breadth of courses. Interesting, of course, we as educators know this, as in 2006, Michigan became the first state to require online learning for high school graduation. I don't know how strictly that's being implemented throughout Michigan, but it's certainly there. Talked about funding models. I'm not sure that it's, well, hold on. Okay, it talks about how it's funded in each state, not necessarily reasons that it gets funded. Like I mentioned again, a reason for doing online courses would be cost sharing. Nothing much else here to give us the why. Okay, so we're seeing that online courses are being offered. Well, the exceptional learners thing again, and again, the theme of this chapter looks as though differentiation of instruction is a function of online learning. It's much easier to different. Well, easier may not be the right word, but it's um, more efficient way of differentiating instruction. So there's some instructional advantages mentioned here. Let's try copy and pasting that one more time. Not going to happen today. All right, but we can at least summarize the findings of those notes. There's obviously the equity issue where we can provide people with equal opportunities of education. So online courses provide opportunities to students not able to attend school. IDEA was mentioned there. So it's a function of the Free and Appropriate Education Act. Free and Appropriate Public Education Act, FAPE. Yep. It also mentions leading or differentiating instruction for disabilities, ELLs, and gifted learners. Again, defining exceptional learners. So, of course, obviously, one of the big benefits here is that online learning is allows to differentiate. We'll see if the remainder of this document has anything worth contributing as far as reasoning why to adopt online learning. Okay, as we scan here, we're just looking at strategies for it, but not necessarily the rationale. So I don't know. I think we've exhausted that resource for the moment. Might be interesting to talk about successful online learners to see what students are like. Seeing about success as well, and maybe let's talk about building online classes. We'll talk about those three, and then maybe we'll try a different search term to help us broaden our search. Okay, so that's a strategy guide for students. But again, the overall message here is that it helps to develop student abilities. Not necessarily useful for our purposes, though. Okay, so different success stories here. Again, speaking to credit recovery and people and students that face hurdles and normal paths to graduation. Nothing new to add to our notes. Okay, so this looks at research. This article looks a little bit at how and why teachers are implementing quality online learning environments, or if they are able to do that. Okay, so again, we're looking not necessarily anything that can help us here. All right. So we've looked at success. Maybe let's refine our search a little bit to just benefits of online courses. Actually, what might be more useful to link to our budget point is cost of providing online courses. So, of course, K-12 is absolutely everywhere. Let's see the online learning survey has to add to us. And again, we're using new tabs. That seems beneficial. Well, I'll tell my students not to use Wikipedia. It might be a good starting point for some links here. Let's see what homeschoolers have to say about online learning. Okay. we are looking at online learning. Studies have published nature of it. Focus on post-secondary education. So the study explores the nature of online learning in K-12. Okay. So if that's all that, probably what's going to be most important to us is the results section here. Let's get scrolling. So again, we're looking for some of the concrete results from this study. Okay, this may be more valuable. So we're saying that schools intend to continue growing, but not necessarily giving a reason why. Although we do have some reasons why online learning might slow. So let's drop that into the notes. See if this PDF will let me copy from it. Okay, so again, people are concerned about the cost in teacher development. Which we'll come back to in our second session when we look at negative things, but it's important to keep in mind. Okay, so rural districts are actually big proponents of online learning. To them, it's important to provide course choices and basic courses because they do have school teacher shortages. It's an interesting connection. Let's see if we can get all that quote this time. So rural districts favor online learning for a number of reasons. Again, to deal with teacher shortages. As well as provide basic programs and expanded programs. else can we add? Inner city, it also recommends the possibility for inner city schools as well, to address a lot of the problems they have, especially with teacher turnover and things like that. You might experience less turnover with the classes fully online. So one detractor said, there's a perceived lack of student discipline for online courses. Um, so if the data reveals that teachers aren't confident that students aren't disciplined enough for the independent study. The data reveals that teachers lack confidence in students' self-discipline in completing online courses. Okay. I think we've milked that source with what we can. Let's see what we can add here from the University of Florida. So I think the lead here says it all. New research says that more students will take classes online, have longer school days, and more of them in the next decade. Academic performance should improve, and schools can save money. So all of which a number of reasons to advocate for online learning. More learning time, improve performance, saving money. And this is actually pretty interesting and something that'll definitely go in the notes. By surveying schools in 14 states, the cost of online learning per pupil full time was $4,300, while the cost of educating traditional schools is $9,100. Now, obviously in Michigan, not every district sees $9,100 per student, but that is interesting that you could educate a student for roughly half of the average. Now, again, the results there might be questionable, but it's certainly a reason to advocate for online learning. Let's try that one more time. So again, provide you can lengthen the instructional day without sinking dollars into facilities and personnel. Obviously, we've mentioned addressed that already. Okay. So again, virtual university. I'm just more curious about this. I haven't really looked into MVU at all. Okay. Nothing worth, but I was just curious about it. Homeschool wants a username and password. Let's see if there's anything we can figure out here, though. Alright, we've looked into that to be found in ads site. That's curious though. Okay. It's just a site providing different online opportunities, but doesn't tell me why K-12 schools would choose it. If we look back at the task, we're still looking at why students or why schools would provide K-12 learning or online learning opportunities. The costing was essential. What are some other things that might be related to that? If we look at cost, let's look at instructional performance or student performance in online programs. It seems to fit the bill. Also seems to fit the bill. Seems like a detriment to online learning. And let's try one more here. See how times might also be useful here. Alright, so let's take a look at this batch of sources. Okay, not a K-12 thing, so let's eliminate that. Okay, the abstract here is pretty interesting. Before we even go any further into the article, so rather significant sample size. Students face decrements in their performance in online courses. Particularly black students, students with lower GPAs, males and younger students face decrements. That's interesting, so that might be a reason to stray away from online learning. The abstract is certainly something that I'd want to note. I'd like to see if there's anything more particular about why inside the paper here. Okay, so let's look at some of the results. Page 14 here. Page 14 and 15 are probably going to be... Let's start with page 14. in general, most students showed negative growth compared to traditional courses, which is kind of interesting given everything we've put together in our body of knowledge in these courses. So perhaps students don't perform as well in online courses. Uh, every student subgroup showed negative coefficients for online learning. Men had stronger negative estimates compared to women. Um, Men have more difficulty adapting to online learning, and females outperform male counterparts. The gender gap is stronger in the online context than in the face-to-face context. So, in other words, um, online learning not good for anyone, at least according to this study, but particularly worse for males because there's more of a gap between their performance and female performance. So why is the gender gap between males and females? More students are likely to drop out of from an online course. Overall, social studies shows the weakest growth, which is interesting for me as a social studies educator. So I don't know how much weight to put into this study because they mentioned that they didn't control for a lot of things and later tried to account for them with their own variables. So it's tough to see how, um, I guess, scientific the study is or how valid the study is. Okay. Well, in general, here the message is online learning bad, at least in that the students studied there. And this article is, of course, based on that working paper, so I don't know how much there is we can gain from it, but let's look through it. Sociology is probably not applicable to us for K-12. And that is another article about the same study we just looked at. Alright, so we need to examine some other outcomes here, or other avenues of research. This online education being the classroom is something new. Student satisfaction might be worthwhile to include as well. I like the idea of student engagement, not necessarily a divergent search term. I'm still trying to educate myself about the issue. Divergent terms can probably come up a little bit later on our research. Okay, so here we have a conflicting study that the New York Times has found. This study coming from the Department of Education. It'll be a source worth looking at in just a bit. I'll go to the primary source, but I want to get a quick recap of it. So the analysis found that students doing some or all course online would rank at 59th percentile in test performance, compared with 50% in face-to-face performance, or in traditional schools. That's certainly interesting. We're showing an increase here through the meta-analysis. So again, speaking to the results and possibilities here, but nothing that we don't already have. Let's look a little bit at this article. So we see here that with a professor that worked through a study that compared performance in her own classes, that students online performed better, and the online version of her courses performed better. we'll take that and add that to our arsenal of facts. So we'll note that as students in taught by the same professor, by an average of a partial letter grade. Alright, fair enough. So let's close the day by looking at some engagement and see if there's any studies we can be added on to here. Okay, so it's just ways to engage students, but not a real study of it. So again, guidelines for behavior, how to engage students, but not necessarily a study of it, which was more of what I was looking for. Um, hmm. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Let's see some of these here. Again, we're looking at how-tos, not necessarily anything that tells me that students are more engaged. Okay, maybe we need a different search term here to figure that relationship out. But we'll pause, end this session here, and join you later for session 2.